So there's quite a few things actually that are not addressed.
Okay.
So
All
the
right.
bars,
Okay,
not the actual venues. The proposal says the venue finishes
at
at 3 a.m.
This is a story about working class communities and corporate interests. Southside Community Council met on Monday the 9th of June after putting out a survey on how the Fringe affects locals and gathered 70 responses. There were residents from Dumbiedykes in attendance who had been battling the planning permission of a venue at the Pleasance Courtyard that operates during the Fringe, which has licence to operate until 3 a.m. on the doorstep of the scheme, and had caused unacceptable disruption, in particular to those who live on Viewcraig Gardens.
So what's it like to live in Dumbiedykes during the Fringe?
It's a diabolical joke, to be honest with you. I've got young children, it's got to go out for school at 6 in the morning. We can't take it anymore, frankly, you know.
The proposed operating hours are 9 a.m. to 3 a.m. daily.
Folk in the community cannot sleep for over a month. The setup begins at the start of June and the last structure is due to leave by the first week in September.
5 bars, 7 catering units, 3 small performance venues, 3 toilet blocks, 1 nappy change facility, 12 storage and back of house facilities and 2 box offices.
Working people and their children are put through mental torture for over a month for the benefit of the Pleasance Theatre Trust, with a registered office address at Carpenter's Mews, North Road, London.
To enhance the city's position as the UK's most entrepreneurial city.
Residents had put in official noise complaints over the years and gathered petitions and were still not respected as stakeholders on the application for planning permission.
The fact that there haven't been objections from the people who live closest, I feel that this is acceptable, and it is, as I think some have touched on, it's part of what makes the city and this particular part of the city quite vibrant.
In 2024, Claire Devlin of Environmental Protection wrote to the planning officer, Nicola Orr, to say that they could not support the application without the applicant submitting a noise impact assessment, demonstrating that amplified music and vocals from the site can meet NR15 within the living apartments of any nearby noise-sensitive receptors.
The 4 objections were from residents at Viewcraig Gardens, concerned with emergency service access, accessibility, noise pollution, requests to limit operating hours, and that the proposed use is not compatible in the area.
This means they refused to support the application unless noise levels were actually tested. This year, no one from Environmental Protection was even asked or had the time or facilities to say anything.
This is a quiet residential street. This proposed bar is located just 9 metres roughly from the nearest residential property. Environmental Protection were consulted on the application, but they provided no consultation response. There's a separate resource issue with Environmental Protection, unfortunately, that we're not getting the level of consultation responses that we previously have.
No request for a noise impact assessment this year has been used as a justification for none being needed and for the issue to have been resolved. It was also argued that there were only 9 complaints in 8 years, but these complaints were taken from a very narrow section of the Environmental Protection website.
Yeah, there's been a total of 9 complaints to Environmental Protection since 2018. Viewcraig Gardens is along here, and as you can see, there's quite a substantial tree buffer and dropped levels. As you can see here, those bars are almost 100 metres from Viewcraig Gardens.
What about all the residents that called the police with noise complaints? What about the 16 residents who signed the petition on Viewcraig Gardens? What about the 70 people who responded to the Southside Community Council survey about the impact of the Fringe? That was only live for 5 days. A lack of complaints on this particular piece of planning permission just means that the applicant and the council haven't conducted proper public outreach.
We are here to protest and try to make our voice heard, which we've been trying for the last 2 months without any results.
On the 11th of June, the Development Management Subcommittee met in City Chambers and recommended that the planning permission be granted to the Pleasance yet again for this year's Fringe, continuing the torture of the scheme next door.
Why have you come to the City Chambers?
I had to come because I contacted the planning department, not only we had to endure that in the previous years, but we saw the application for this year and it says there's no history of noise, there's no history of complaints. They're basically lying to get the application through, and it was very offensive and upsetting to see that. And we thought once we contacted the planning department, they would act on it because it's a planning application, should be accurate. Nobody wants to hear us.
Before the meeting, Southside Community Councillors made calls to councillors and to Environmental Protection to urge them to engage with Dumbiedykes residents and get the applicant to include them as stakeholders and gather all the information they need.
There's not likely to be a huge number of objections, but it might be that actually there's a significant proportion of people very locally who are impacted, and I think that's just as significant.
We wanted to make it clear to councillors that we want to work with them, not against them, to make sure the Pleasance and the Fringe work responsibly with the community.
What would you like the Pleasance to do? Like, what's your ideal outcome of today?
Right. They need to either scale it down a bit or spread it over a bit more. Because you've got all the one stuff in the one spot. Right at the back of my house, literally my Bairns window looks right onto it. And then the mess with your food trucks, your beer trucks, etc. like that, it flies all over the place.
We arrived early at the chambers to hand evidence to the councillors, petitions and complaints from locals, and Environmental Protection's objection letter.
We shouldn't be here. We should be taken care on our behalf.
Councillors would not interact with us. So in a desperate bid to finally be heard and get their children a good night's sleep, Dumbiedykes residents and community councillors interrupted the meeting.
Okay, moving on to discussion. Who would like to start?
Sorry, folks, if you don't mind, just for 2 seconds.
Please, you're unable to speak.
Okay, so
Excuse me, would you please sit down?
so it's just you haven't actually represented the people in regards to this.
Excuse me, you are unable to address the committee. You have been told this already.
Okay, perfect. Could you address the residents of Dumbiedykes as a committee?
So the Dumbiedykes residents have got a voice, their opinion.
The residents that are being tortured by this noise just want to be included as stakeholders. Please reply to the Dumbiedykes residents that have emailed you all. They just want to be included as stakeholders. We totally agree with some of the things councillors have said and we want to work with them. We don't want to work against the council at all. Please reply to Dumbiedykes residents that have emailed you. Please reply to the constant emails.
All those assessments that you made, shame on
Thanks very much. Thank you.
After making it known that the residents are suffering, and a few supportive comments from some councillors, the planning permission was only granted for 1 year as opposed to 3.
The concerns that we've been hearing are genuine. It is unfortunate that we don't have this full noise impact assessment in front of us. There's not been the chance to do that. My suggestion would be that we, rather than giving this a 3 years planning permission, that we give it a 1 year.
And a noise impact assessment is now advised. This is a small win for the community, but Dumbiedykes deserves the earlier curfew on the venue they've been asking for and to be classed as stakeholders officially, so they are properly consulted with.
What we're saying is we couldn't invalidate an application because it didn't have a noise impact assessment if it comes in next year without one, but I suppose the simplest way of putting it is hell mend them if they don't come in with the noise impact assessment and go through that proper assessment.
Dumbiedykes has been stripped of a shop and a community centre thanks to council cuts. It has no Lothian bus route, no GP surgery, and is being squeezed by the university, short-term lets and the Fringe. It is used and abused, and when you put people under this kind of pressure for years, you cannot expect them to sit silently and take it. We shouldn't have to disrupt council meetings.
Apologies for the interruption.
We hope that the council and the Fringe won't put the community in this position again, and we won't have to.
Plenty of clubs and everything open until 3, 5 o'clock even in the morning. Again, they can go away to all these clubs, they're all round about, there's hundreds of them in Edinburgh.